This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How we doing today on this Monday? Almost halfway through the month of May. That's wild to think about. We appreciate everybody who's jumping in and joining us today on The Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook at Joe Gaither 6 and on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. If you'd like The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral, subscribe, rate, and review the show. Tell a friend about the program as we're getting into the summer, and we're going to figure out what we want to do with the next couple of months. But what we're going to do today is talk about the weekend. We had a couple of a couple pieces of news to get into, a couple storylines to get into. We'll talk about the weekend, a couple things for Alabama football, Alabama softball, getting some really good news going into the postseason. We're going to tell you why Joe Gaither was wrong. Yep, I was wrong. So we're gonna lean into that just a little bit. Alabama basketball got a little bit of news today with some conference opponents being laid out for the next season. And Mark Sears, how short is Mark Sears? So we're going to talk a little bit of everything on this Monday. I hope everybody is having a great Monday. You can always jump in on the comment section at Joe Gaither 6 on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Send me a comment, question, query, or complaint. I'll pop it up on the screen and respond to it. And without further ado, what do you want to start with? I got softball brackets. I got Gino Vandermark and King Mack on my list. I've got SEC basketball opponents, Jaron Stevenson and Aaron Estrada, and of course, Mark Sears. Why don't we start with softball? Because that's the active sport going on. We'll knock out how I was wrong, because I was wrong. Look, Alabama softball lost to LSU Wednesday in 14 innings, 3-2. Really not. Let's be honest, not a good showing in the SEC tournament down there in Auburn. But okay, with that being said, Alabama was looking like they were going to be they were projected as the number 16 seed in the NCAA tournament before the SEC tournament. They lost the first round. They lost in the opening game on Wednesday. Really, it's the second round as they didn't play in the Tuesday opener. But they lost their first game in the SEC tournament. And I was wondering, and maybe it's the casual in me, if they would fall off the hosting line. But they are not. Alabama softball receives the number 14 seed overall, which means they're hosting a regional this coming weekend. If you want to see some softball, you can do it right here in Tuscaloosa at the Rhodes House. Alabama's taking on Clemson, taking on UC Upstate, and taking on Southeastern Louisiana in the Tuscaloosa regional. What is it, 19 years in a row? Is that what our friend Nathan Sheehan sent out last night? 19 years in a row hosting a regional. It's 25 straight postseason bids, and that was never in doubt. Alabama was always going to be in the postseason. But there was a little conversation about hosting or not. But now as I look a little bit deeper into the numbers, I realize, okay, Alabama probably was always going to be in regardless of what happened in the SEC tournament. And why is that? Well, the first factor is all 13 SEC teams made it into the NCAA tournament. Let's look at the NCAA tournament bracket real quick. You got Texas, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Stanford, UCLA, Missouri, Oklahoma State, Arkansas, Duke, Florida State, Louisiana, Florida, and Oklahoma are all. That's your 16 host sites. But all 13 schools in the SEC are going to the NCAA tournament. You got Oklahoma and Texas, who are not SEC tournament teams yet, or SEC teams yet, also hosting. So how many SEC teams? Tennessee, Texas A&M 2, Alabama 3, Georgia 4, LSU 5, Missouri 6, Arkansas 7, Florida 8. 8 SEC schools hosting regional opponents, or hosting regional sites with, I guess you can count 10, throw in 10 SEC schools with Texas and Oklahoma. So the league is, it's highly respected. It's incredible. It's wildly respected. And so over the weekend, when I was like, okay, are they going to host? Are they not going to host? Okay, they've gone really honestly not so good. They're 4-9 in their last 13 games. Really not good over the last 13 games. The only SEC series win they had was against Ole Miss. They finished below 500 in the SEC for the first time under Patrick Murphy. I thought, oh my gosh, this guy is falling. And with me and some of my friends, we all commiserated about this guy is falling. But a deeper look will show you that maybe not. Because the RPI, look, I didn't even realize that you can go to WarrenNolan.com, handles RPI kind of projections. And even in softball, there's quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, and 4 wins. And so you look at the schedule and you look at what Alabama did this year. And yeah, you see the conference schedule. Here they are. They were 16th in the RPI, 10-14 in conference play. But look at the conference schedule. Look at their strength of schedule. They had the number 6 strength of schedule out of everyone. They were 23-2 in non-conference play. And yeah, their non-conference strength of schedule is 37. But you mix the non-conference schedule in with the SEC, you look at the RPI. How many SEC teams are in the top end of the RPI? Tennessee at 4, LSU at 5, Florida at 6. You got Missouri at 9, Georgia at 11, Arkansas at 14, A&M at 15, and Alabama sitting right there at 16. So how many was that? Was that 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 schools in the top 16 right there. Auburn at 22, and Auburn didn't really have a good SEC season either at 9-15. Mississippi State at 23, they were 500 in the SEC, 12-12. You got South Carolina at 29, Kentucky at 30. Like, this was a loaded league. We talk about baseball being absolutely loaded, and softball was the same. So look, the biggest frustration for you, the fan, for us, the viewers, for people who are covering this Alabama program has been the hitting. But you look at the strength of schedule and you look at the strength of competition throughout the entirety of the season, and especially in SEC play. And maybe Alabama's been playing postseason softball for the last 3 months. Maybe. Maybe that's a little hyperbole, but Alabama enters this weekend really with a fresh slate. And okay, I did go out onto the Twitter machine at twitter.com. You can find it at Joe Gaither 6. And I wondered and suggested if Alabama's streak of hosting regionals, now at 19 in a row, and if Alabama's 3,900 seat stadium right here in Tuscaloosa that will be likely sold out. It'll have a good crowd on over the weekend. I wonder if that played any factor. And maybe that was erroneous of me to suggest that, the NCAA just wants to have a good showing on TV, and maybe Alabama grandfathered in, a little Bama bias here. The RPI shows that they went out and challenged themselves in non-conference play fairly well, and they performed fairly well in non-conference play. Yeah, you went to Tennessee and you only scored 1 run, 4 weekends ago? But you look through the conference schedule, you look through the conference top to bottom, and it is absolutely brutal. It's absolutely loaded. And so maybe the expectations or just the general feel of, Alabama's not very good this year was erroneous because of how difficult the SEC was all season long. Regardless, opinions don't matter. Alabama's in the tournament. Alabama's sitting there at number 14. They've got a host site, and you can be there this weekend. You can check out how to watch right there on BamaCentral.com. Our friend Katie Wyndham already dialing that up for us. Katie Wyndham's going to be involved in all the coverage right there this weekend. Alabama is getting started on Friday at 4:30 against UC Upstate. And then basically from there, it's a nice little weekend tournament. The winners on Friday, Clemson and Southeastern Louisiana versus the winners of Alabama UC Upstate the next day, and then you can play the winners again on Sunday. It's a double elimination weekend, and so everything's right there out in front of the Crimson Tide. And look, we haven't done softball a ton on this show. I recognize that and I understand that, but here we are at the business end, and Alabama's once again hosting a regional site. So look, is the noise that's been around Patrick Murphy amongst maybe the casual fans fair? I think a little bit it is, because the frustration has just been a simmering undercurrent about the batting, about the hitting. But when you take a step back and you realize the landscape of college softball and you realize where Alabama is in the landscape of college softball, I think Patrick Murphy's still doing a great job. The program is as healthy as it's ever been. You can argue that and say, oh, well, they won a national championship in 2012. It's not that healthy. It's not as healthy as it was. And okay, that's fine. But once you get to kind of the postseason play, you're almost at a new year rolling the dice. And you've got a 4-team tournament this weekend. You can say, oh, they're not going to beat Oklahoma. Oh, they're not going to beat Texas. If they get to the College World Series, they're going to be in trouble. And maybe so. But right here, right now, Alabama can get a clean restart and you have a good weekend this weekend. And then you go up to, I believe they're paired up. Yeah, they're paired up with the Knoxville Regional. You'll either be playing up there in Knoxville the next weekend in the Super Regionals, or if you're able to win, maybe you host. If you're able to win and Tennessee gets upset, Tennessee has to get upset. The highest ranked seed, I believe, will host the next round. So, look, you've got a brand new slate, and everything is all the badness, all the, oh, we can't hit over the last couple of weeks is out the window. You're back home this weekend. You're back home this weekend against some decent competition. You look through the RPI, and Clemson's sitting there at 21. Clemson's sitting there at 21. I had the others. Control F, UC, South Carolina, UC Upstate, USC Upstate. They're not ranked very highly. Upstate, goodness gracious, 123, and Southeastern Louisiana was ranked in the middle, right? Louisiana, yeah, 50-something, 56 in the Southland Conference. So you've got 3 teams that you're supposed to be better than coming into Tuscaloosa, and you can really restart. And look, if you get to the Super Regionals and you give Tennessee a real run for their money, or if you get to the Super Regionals and you beat Tennessee and you're able to get to the College World Series, then all this, oh, you're below 500 in SEC play, it gets thrown out the window. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. So you have a real chance to basically rewrite the story of your season. And you can see that in the Rhodes House on Friday. So, look, I was wrong saying that Alabama probably wouldn't be hosting. I accept the wrongness right there. And, look, maybe I was a little hyperbolic on the Twitter machine saying that maybe Alabama's stadium capacity and how it's going to look on TV might played a factor into Alabama's hosting bid. Looks like Patrick Murphy scheduled his tail off in the non-conference schedule to enough degree to balance with the difficulty of the SEC season. The two schedules kind of merged together, non-conference and conference play. And while conference play didn't give you the results that you were looking for as an Alabama fan, the entire body of work puts Alabama into a hosting bid this weekend. And you congratulate them, and you congratulate Patrick Murphy. 19 years in a row of hosting, that's absolutely insane and absurd. And while, of course, it's been 12 years since you won a national title, Patrick Murphy, it's the consistency factor. Many of you already know this. My parents graduated from the University of Georgia. I grew up in a Georgia household, and I grew up basically watching the Mark Richt era in Georgia. And look, Mark Richt got a lot of maybe undue criticism from outside noise. Oh, you can't win the big game. But he kept Georgia at the 8, 9, 10 win mark pretty much year in and year out. Now, obviously, the Georgia fan wanted more, and they went out and got more in Kirby Smart. But Patrick Murphy, if you're competing and consistently delivering at a top level in the college game, you're hosting a regional 19 years in a row. I think that while, of course, you want the extra cherry on top of another national championship, you want to go to the College World Series and win a national championship again. It's been a long time since you've done that. But the consistency of keeping Alabama right there in the conversation, giving them a solid dice roll year in and year out of, oh, this team can win it all if a couple breaks go their way, is highly, highly, highly commendable for Patrick Murphy and for this program. So pay attention to that on Friday. We'll keep up. We'll see if Katie Windham has a little bit of time to preview the regional this weekend. We'll see if she wants to join us and preview that. I know she had a very busy week serving a lot of people down in Costa Rica. She was actually with the FCA trip. University of Alabama took an FCA mission trip with a couple of football players, a couple of other athletes that she was a part of. So we might be able to get in touch with her to talk about softball and talk about that mission trip a little bit. On the football side of things, Alabama basically solidified its roster. On Saturday morning, Gino Vandermark, we've talked about him on the program probably too much for an interior backup offensive lineman, but Gino Vandermark announced his commitment on Saturday. On Friday night after the program, King Mack announced his commitment. So Alabama, the two guys that we previewed last week, that we kind of teased and danced around, both ended up following through with their decisions and committing to the University of Alabama. Now, where's Alabama on the scholarship line? I think you're right there at 85, 86. And you say, oh, Joe, you got to be at 85. Who's got to leave? Nah, there's a little gray area as far as maybe an NIL deal can cover a player scholarship. You look through the scholarships and you look at the in-state guys and you say, which one of these guys are willing to kind of, forego a scholarship instead for NIL money. And I think that's how you're going to get maybe to the 85 if you're at 86. If you're not at 86, look, it's sometimes hard to tell who's all on scholarship, but Alabama is right there on the max number. So I don't think that you're going to be taking Khalil Jacobs, the South Alabama linebacker that's been in the transfer portal, that's dancing around several SEC schools. Khalil Jacobs is dancing around with Ole Miss, dancing around with Auburn, dancing around with Alabama a little bit as well, dancing with Missouri. He's kind of seeing what his right fit will be, but I think Alabama's full. Look, is the third inside linebacker position probably a position of need? Yeah, it looked like a position of need to me at 8A. Does that mean that, Justin Jefferson can't improve over the summer and into the fall? No, he can. He can improve over the summer and into the fall. Justin Okoronkwo can get more comfortable in American football and in college football at the Division I level, and he could be ready to play third inside linebacker. Jeremiah Alexander can have more time playing inside. I mean, look, he was an edge rusher, moved to inside linebacker. He's still getting used to the position. Could he develop into that third interior linebacker? Yeah, he could. I think at this point, you're basically rolling the dice right there. You said, okay, we as an Alabama perspective, would rather have an experienced interior offensive lineman and an experienced corner instead of that third interior linebacker. And that's probably the smart decision because, look, if Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson stay healthy the entire year, then it's not going to be a problem. Those two guys are some head busters. Those two guys are really physical and I think are really, really good linebackers. My big concern was their health because last season when it was the two of them and Tresman Marshall, one of the three was always dinged up and always hurt. And people talk about, Deontay Lawson didn't really have a good year last year. I think that he was basically soldiering through injury pretty much since what week was it that he went out? He went out in the Mississippi State game, right? Or he went out in the Ole Miss game. He rolled an ankle in the Ole Miss game, and it was early in the year. Fifth game of the season, and never really was, I don't think, fully healthy. And so I think he was soldiering through things. That's my concern for that room. But really, you look at the transfer portal and the spring window and what Kalen DeBoer did. You got Caden Proctor back from Iowa. That was obviously strange development, but you get a quality left tackle. You guys can argue with me or not, but I think he is a quality left tackle. Freshmen have growing pains. Sometimes it's not going to go great for freshmen when they're exposed at the Division I level. I think Caden Proctor getting him back was a big win for Alabama. You end up going out and getting a couple of safeties in Cameron Howard and King Mack. So look, you're like, sad about losing Tony Mitchell and you're sad about losing Peyton Woodyard as well. But You replace them with experienced players that are thought of highly athletically. So when Cameron Howard and King Mack. Look, King Mack was Florida State champion in the 400 meters. You go run 400 meters. Oh my gosh, that is the hardest event in track, in my opinion. That and the 300-meter hurdles are the hardest event in track. And King Mack, the Penn State safety now at Alabama, is a former 400-meter champion here at Alabama. So that man's got speed for days. I'm excited about it. You go out and get Deshaun Jones. You say, oh, we don't have any experienced corners outside of Damani Jackson, but we don't want to get a guy in here that's going to totally neuter the development of these five-star freshmen. I think Deshaun Jones was a perfect get for that. Oh, you lose the NCAA's all-time scoring leader in Will Reichert, and let's congratulate Will Reichert for his recent contract signing with the Minnesota Vikings. I think I saw him get over $170,000 in guarantees from as a bonus. So I'm sure he and his new wife are very happy about that. But you lost Will Reichert, and let's go replace him with Graham Nicholson. Only the Lou Groza Award winner. So you think about Kalen DeBoer with the roster basically set. What he's done, I think, is strong. You're always going to lose players. You're going to lose. You lost players in the spring because I came to play for Nick Saban, and that was always going to happen whenever Nick Saban retired, no matter if he retired last year, this year, in 5 years, whenever it was going to happen, you were always going to lose players that said, I'm coming to Alabama to play for Nick Saban. I think Kalen DeBoer has come in here and really, really managed things very well. And now, obviously, he's got a nice little team around him, and led by Courtney Morgan on the general manager side, helping him, identify players and bring them in and kind of zero in on guys. But as for a first-year effort going into this 2024 season, I don't think that there's a huge drop-off from last year's roster to this year's roster. People talk about, you lost 20, 23 guys in the transfer portal. And, of course, you did. You brought some guys in as well. I think that, the transfer portal taketh, but the transfer portal giveth as well. And so, Kalen DeBoer, you got to give him a small round of applause for the work that they did on the transfer portal. Now, it's got to translate to the field, and you want to see how that happens in the fall. But as far as, just roster management, numbers management, if your biggest hole going into the season is, we're not very comfortable with our third interior linebacker, let's be honest with ourselves. That's not really a huge problem. That's not really a huge hole. It's not like, we don't have a running back. We don't have a quarterback. We need a starting guard. It's not like that. It's we need a pass rush specialist on third down. Those would be, I think that overall, Kalen DeBoer has reworked this roster or managed this roster to a pretty good spot. And so when we get to probably the next couple of days talking about previewing the 2024 football season and predicting records, look, I saw some of these graphics about the 12-team playoffs that have Alabama hosting, what did I see, Notre Dame as like a 6 seed or a 7 seed. Look, that'd be amazing. You get to the college football playoff in the first year under Kalen DeBoer. The schedule is a bear. It's not easy. The SEC is going to be really, really tough next year with Texas and Oklahoma into the conference and no divisions anymore. If Kalen DeBoer can become one of the SEC teams in the college football playoffs next year, I think it's a massive success. And so we'll talk about that in the future. But for now, Alabama's roster is basically done. And Kalen DeBoer, I think, and he and his staff did a pretty good job now in roster construction and roster management. All right, let's keep it going, but we're going to flip to basketball for the rest of the show. We're going to talk about Alabama's conference opponents. Alabama got its 2025 SEC opponent slate today. All the conference got their slate today. You don't know the dates quite yet, but you know the home and away opponents. And then we'll talk about the G League Combine, Aaron Estrada and Jaron Stevenson. And we'll finish with our friend Mark Sears, because he's up there in Chicago doing the NBA Combine, the big boy combine right now. now. As always, you can follow us on social medias at Joe Gaither6. You can send me your comment, question, query, and complaint. You can go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon, the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. We'd appreciate everybody doing that. We're not going to go the Patrick Beverly route. You can't ask me a question if you don't subscribe, but we'd appreciate it. It'd be fun. Oh, let's see what that is. The best show ever. Hey, thank you so much, Everett, for jumping in and hitting us with a comment. You can be like our friend Everett Osmer on Facebook and leave us a comment. That's a very kind comment. Maybe it's not the best show ever, but we like to have a lot of fun, and we do our best every single day. I appreciate you so much, sir, for saying that. That lifts me up a little bit. I appreciate that. Let's talk SEC basketball. Because, look, Alabama was, what, a four-way tie for, where's my tab? Yeah, right there. Four-way tie for second place last season, ended up with the 5th seed, and we went over at length 1 million times the amount of turnover that Alabama basketball had last year. Nate Oates, going into year number 6 here, has constructed a roster that is once again worthy of competing for an SEC title. The SEC putting out their conference slate, and it's going to start next January 4th. You're still playing just 18 games, even with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. So what did you do? You lost basically some. You lost one of your home and homes. You lost one of your home and homes, and you basically split that into some teams are going to Texas, some teams are going to Oklahoma, and vice versa. Texas is coming to some teams' places, and Oklahoma is coming to some teams' places. But everybody is on the schedule. I like that for the SEC. Look, I'd love to have a 19 or 20 game schedule just because I'm a sadistic person and I want more high-quality basketball. But 18-game schedule, it's going to be a challenge. I mean, the league isn't going away. Let's look at who Alabama drew and where Alabama drew. The biggest things to me are the 3 home and homes. You get 3 home and homes, and of course, you're always going to get Auburn on your home and home schedule. You're getting Mississippi State on your home and home schedule. And for your 3rd, no, it's not Tennessee. No, it's not LSU. It's not Texas or Oklahoma either. Alabama's getting Kentucky for its 3rd home and home next year. And wow, I mean, I think that's great. Look, obviously, you know the turnover that Kentucky has had. I think that Mark Pope's going to do a fine job. But anytime you can get Big Blue Nation into Coleman Coliseum, the stakes go way up. Look, anytime Kentucky is here, Coleman gets packed. And I think that really, I have a buddy who makes fun of me. Oh, you're a Kentucky fan now because of the SEC tournament. No, that's not the case, but it's more like an appreciation for their passion for basketball. When I was at the SEC tournament this year, it was a total takeover of Nashville. It was blue everywhere. And now you've probably experienced that before, but that was my first experience with that. And so I was really impressed. And so to have, the traveling caravan of Kentucky, and look, they are going to be fired up this year with the new coach. They're going to just be on board with Mark Pope. And I don't know if they're going to be as talented as they have been under John Calipari, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think their passion is going to be really, really high. And so to bring them into Coleman Coliseum raises the stakes of those games. And look, from a selfish standpoint, I want as many big games in Coleman Coliseum as I can get, just because it's fun to me. Like, you can say, oh, Joe, you're a homer, or you're, this, that, and the other. But I just, look, bring Duke into Coleman Coliseum, bring Kansas, bring the Boston Celtics into Coleman Coliseum, please. Let's just see where you measure up and fill the place up. When you get 13, 15,000, whatever the capacity actually is in Coleman Coliseum, when you get it full and you turn the fan bases and you turn those fans up to level 10, it becomes a fun place to watch a basketball game. So Auburn, Mississippi State, and Kentucky are your home and home opponents. Maybe you'd rather save your big road trip this year is over to Lexington. The road schedule, oh my gosh, is going to be absolutely insane, not just for the conference schedule, but the non-conference schedule as well. We talked about that last week. You're going to, you got lots of big road games next year. But for your conference schedule at home, we hit Auburn, we hit Mississippi State, and we hit Kentucky. You're bringing Florida in. You're bringing Georgia in, LSU, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt. And let's be honest, that's a little underwhelming, isn't it? I mean, look, you've got Florida, and that's going to be a good game. Florida Gators. I always mess this up, so I'm doing Todd Golden. Thank you. I always say Mike White, but he's not over there. Todd Golden is is gonna be leading the Florida Gators. And to me, when I look at the schedule, I mean, obviously the Auburn game and the Kentucky game stand out. Great, we just kind of hit on that. The rivalry with Alabama and Auburn, and that is going to be turned up to level 10 that night. Absolutely. Kentucky the same sort of way. The rest of the schedule. Georgia, not really a huge SEC team. Now, I think Chris Beard is building Ole Miss, but still not really a huge SEC team. LSU's been working in the transfer portal, but I haven't really been impressed with what they have brought in. Vanderbilt, didn't they just fire Jerry Stackhouse? So they're going to be bringing a new head coach into Coleman Coliseum. Oklahoma, a little bit of a down year last year in basketball. You wonder what they're going to actually be. I'm going to beat every single one of these games, and I'm going to find a way to get excited about them. But, it's not the best home SEC schedule outside of the aforementioned Auburn, Kentucky, and maybe Florida. So hopefully, those dates fall favorably for the Alabama fan. Give the Kentucky game a Saturday at 3:00, Saturday at 4:00. Have that Auburn game Saturday at 6, an evening game. Let's save the Ole Miss game. Let's save the Vanderbilt games for the Tuesday, Wednesdays, for the Tuesday at 6, for the Wednesday at 6, where, the Birmingham crowd can't get off work yet to get here. Let's schedule smart the SEC. Now, the actual dates will be announced at a later date, but those are the opponents that are coming into Coleman Coliseum. Now, on the road, it's not easy. Goodness gracious. On the road, you're going, obviously, to Auburn, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. Those are your home and homes. But you're going on the road to Arkansas to see John Calipari and the Razorbacks, the new look Razorbacks. That's not going to be easy. You're going on the road to Tennessee. Golly, that's been a little bit of a house of horrors for Alabama. You're going on the road to Texas and Texas A&M. Those are long road trips if the opponents aren't the opponent, regardless of the opponents, those road trips are not easy. And South Carolina as well. I think Lamont Parrish has been building the Gamecocks. Obviously, they came to Tuscaloosa and got their butt kicked last year early in the SEC season, but they'd really put things together down the stretch and had a quality year. You're going on the road to Missouri. Dennis Gates had a terrible year last year, no SEC wins, but their recruiting class was still pretty good. The road schedule is pretty challenging to me. At Auburn, at Arkansas, at Kentucky, at South Carolina, at Tennessee, at Texas A&M. It's going to be a real challenge, I think, on the road next year in the SEC. So, look, while we have highlighted the Alabama basketball roster and the reconstruction that Nate Oates and his staff have done, shout out to you, Preston Murphy, and all your hard work. But we've highlighted that, and I do think the roster is going to be really, really good and really, really deep. The schedule is, once again, a bear and a half, a grizzly bear. I mean, it might be two grizzly bears. It might be the hardest schedule when you combine the non-conference and the conference schedule that Nate Oates has ever had in his now 6 years in Tuscaloosa. And we know he's scheduled difficult. I think you're on 2 years in a row of the number one strength of schedule in the country, and you're about to set. This year is going to be 3 years. So it's definitely going to be the number one strength of schedule in the country. So when you get to January and the conference schedule opens, if you're 10-5 or 13-5, if you lost a handful of games because you've been challenging yourself in November, don't be out on this team. Be ready to jump in and support them once conference schedule starts. I mean, really, get ready to get behind this team in November. But it could be a difficult November and December, setting up for preparing this team for what looks to be a challenging SEC road schedule. Home schedule, not as challenging, but the SEC is not a joke in any means. So it's going to be fun. We'll let you know when the dates come out right there at BamaCentral.com. If you missed what I just said, or if you got lost in some of what I just said, you can read the Alabama Conference opponents on BamaCentral.com right now. You've got that right there on the home page. Let's keep it going with basketball. The G League Combine was this weekend, and you're like, who cares about the G League Combine? Well, the reason you care about the G League Combine was Jaren Stevenson and Aaron Estrada both were competing, and the NBA implemented a very strange draft rule this year, in my opinion. In order to be draft eligible, you have to compete in the Combine, the NBA Combine, not the G League Combine. What they did, they invited 78 players to the NBA Combine. That's what Mark Sears is competing in today. That's what Bronny James is competing in today. That's what Zach Edey is competing in today. That's what Stephon Castle is competing in today. But over the weekend, they had the G League Combine. And what they did was invite 5-7 players from the G League Combine to compete in the big boy NBA Combine. And so what it means for Aaron Estrada and Jaren Stevenson is they're not going to get drafted. And what that means for you, the fan, is Jaren Stevenson's going to come back to Tuscaloosa unless he just has a wild hair on his rear end. But he's not going to get drafted in the NBA. He's not eligible to get drafted in the NBA because he was not called from the G League Combine into the NBA Combine. They had 78 players invited into the NBA Combine, and they invited maybe 5 to 7 more who stood out this past weekend at the G League Combine. Aaron Estrada seemed like he had a good weekend, but the thing that scares these NBA teams away from Aaron Estrada is the fact that he's an older prospect. It's a not great NBA draft anyways from top to bottom, and they don't want to really, I guess, waste a lot of time on an older prospect when they see, younger potential out there. I think Aaron Estrada is still going to be on NBA radars, but he's not going to be drafted. He's not eligible to be drafted at this point, and he's not eligible to come back to Tuscaloosa either. So you wish him well, and you hope that he finds a professional path forward. And he absolutely will find a professional path forward, whether that's here in the United States or abroad. There's absolutely going to be a professional opportunity for Aaron Estrada. But Jaren Stevenson returns to school. Or he should, unless he also just decides he doesn't need to be drafted to go pro. Look, Jaren's going to come back to school, go through another year, and be on the draft radar probably next season. So both of those guys' fates are kind of determined. The last guy is Mark Sears. And Mark Sears was up at the NBA Combine today, and Mark Sears really, look, you all know what he is as a shooter. He is an absolute assassin as a shooter. He can shoot from deep. He can score from pretty much anywhere on the court. That's great. We love it. Now, what's been his downfall? Size and physicality. His defensive ability. Can he guard these bigger guards in the NBA? Can he get past? Can he blow by some of these bigger guards in the NBA? Can he still get himself to the rim at the NBA? And Mark Sears got some, let's be honest, bad news from the NBA at the NBA Combine today. I'm reading from my friend Wyatt Fulton on Tide109.com. He wrote out a sheet about kind of his measurables. Mark Sears dialed in at 5'10" and a quarter. Now, look, you see me just from the neck up. I'm 5'9", 5'10". I'm 5'10", basically. No, I'm not going to sit here and claim 6 foot. Not lying on my dating apps for that. But I'm right there, 5'10". And you knew when you looked at the program and you looked at RollTide.com, and when it said Mark Sears at 6'1", and then you stood next to him in press conferences, or you walked next to him on the court at Coleman Coliseum, that, you are not 6'1", my friend. Now, Mark Sears is 10, 20, 30, 40 times the basketball player I ever was. I'm not even the height is irrelevant. He's absolutely an incredible, much more than I ever was. But at 5'10", that is going to scare the bejesus out of some of these NBA teams. And look, somebody like they'll say, "Oh, look, he's a great shooter, but he's 5'10". That's going to be thrown on him all the time. He won't be able to escape it. You look at the rest of his numbers. Let's see if you've got anything else. Okay, so they're doing scrimmage rosters, and Mark Sears is on a roster with AJ Johnson, Dylan Jones. Oh, he's going to be playing with Alex Caravan today. Antonio Reeves, Kentucky player, Baylor Shireman. Okay, so a couple of players he's already familiar with. Oh shoot. Mark Sears, one of his teammates, is gonna be Bronny James. That's incredible. Bronny James. Oh, yeah. Bronny James listed at 6'3", 6'4" at USC, barely at 6'1". I don't understand. Oh, I do understand what he's doing, but goodness gracious, look, Bronny, I was on your side. I've been a little bit of a Bronny James defender of people saying, "Oh, he's overrated." Da, 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 da. Don't go to the NBA, dude. You see Shams Charania reporting today that Bronny James is not going to return to college and he's going to stay in the NBA draft pool. And that just screams nepotism to the highest degree, in my opinion. People are going, one team's going to draft him, and LeBron James is either going to opt out of his contract or the Lakers are going to draft him, and he's going to be an NBA player. And I think that LeBron, you're doing a total disservice to your son. LeBron, at some point during the year, was getting upset about somebody kind of criticizing Bronny James. Oh, he's just a kid. Let him be a kid. Okay, let him be a kid. Bronny James should be a 3 or 4 year college player. Bronny James at 6'1", he's not a 3 like he played this year at USC. He's more of a 1 or a 2. He's more of a point guard. Put the ball in his hands and let him pass the ball. Get his ball handling skills, raise the bar up with his ball handling skills. Look, he's got a good eye for passing, and he is a good athlete at 6'1", and he's a strong defender, but he's not an NBA player. So what are you doing, LeBron? You yourself are accelerating his path and basically perpetuating expectations for your son for us. And then you come back, oh, let him be a kid. Let him develop. Let him develop where he's going to develop. They're in college. Whether he transfers out of USC to Duquesne or not, or transfers out of USC to SMU or not, he's a college basketball player. And so Bronny James is staying in the NBA draft. But this is about Mark Sears. Mark Sears, 5'10". Turn it over. Yesterday was the NBA draft lottery, and the Atlanta Hawks won the draft lottery. Congratulations if you're an Atlanta Hawks fan. Great for you. I'm not really a fan of any particular NBA team. We're going to watch it. But goodness gracious, the draft is atrocious when you look at the top of the draft. You look at guys like, this is BleacherReport.com. Jonathan Wasserman, yesterday after the lottery, puts out his full 2-round mock draft. And I scroll all the way through the first round and no Mark Sears. And I scroll all the way through the second round and no Mark Sears. It's looking like Mark Sears is going to return to Tuscaloosa. Okay, you say, oh, I don't trust Jonathan Wasserman of Bleacher Report. I don't like that guy. You can have that opinion if you want. He does fine work. So let's flip to somebody else. Jonathan Givney and Jeremy Woo of ESPN also yesterday, 4:00, put out a mock draft, all 2 rounds. And what happens? No Mark Sears. Not in the first round, not in the second round. That 5'10" is going to follow him around. And so, look, on one hand, you think, oh, gosh, that's bad news for Mark Sears. But on the other hand, it might be good news for you, the Alabama fan. It might be good news for you, the college basketball fan, because I think you're almost – look, before this weekend, I thought Mark was kind of a middle, he's in that 30 to 40 range. He's right in that sweet spot on if he's going to get guaranteed money or not and if he's going to be a draft pick or not. But after the combine, oh my gosh, you look through how many players in the NBA are 5'10" or shorter. Oh, only 2. Isaiah Thomas, who's not really in the NBA right now, and Jacob Gilyard, who is on a 2-way contract. So 2 players who are not really in the NBA right now. They're both considered active players because they're connected to the league, but they're not getting any run in the NBA. So Mark, I think, is going to be coming back to Tuscaloosa. And for me, selfishly, that's exciting. Now, you hope that he makes a pretty strong NIL deal, and I think that he will make a pretty strong NIL deal this season, and he absolutely deserves it for what he's done for Alabama and for the program. But I wonder if his professional opportunities are going to be limited because of the 5'10" measurement. So we'll look forward to watching that further in the future. It's going to be a big week because Alabama baseball has its final games going down to Auburn. Alabama baseball took 2 out of 3 against LSU, winning in absolutely insane fashion on Friday night. Kind of letting it slip away on Saturday in the later innings. They ended up losing. They ended up giving up like 4 runs in the 7th or 8th inning and losing. But battle back and won on Sunday. So a good weekend for Alabama baseball. They'll go down to Auburn this weekend for the last SEC series, and then it's on to Hoover. And look, you guys may or may not know I don't love baseball that much, but the SEC tournament in Hoover is a blast. It is so much fun. You get all 14 fan bases, and everybody's kind of in jovial spirit. Everybody's in kind of a positive spirit. Hot dogs are flowing, and obviously everybody wants their own team to win, but everybody's kind of in a communal spirit, and it's a lot of fun. I don't know. It's hard for me to identify exactly why I think that event is so special, but from a not really a baseball fan, I'm really looking forward to being up in Hoover in 2 weeks to watch the SEC baseball tournament. It's going to be a blast, and I hope that you guys will follow us on BamaCentral for all the coverage. We're going to get out of here for the day. You can always follow me at Gaither6 on any social media machine that you like, on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, any of your favorite. I'm on the others as well, at Gaither6. You can find BamaCentral at BamaCentral.com, with your Sports Illustrated home for the Crimson Tide, and we'll be back for another edition of the Joe Gaither Show tomorrow right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.